Discussion, it's the heart of the matter. Serving up opinions on a silver platter. It's a grind. The information getting, bringing your got so hot you'll be sweating. These two dudes with attitudes will put you in the mood for a plate full of brain food. So don't delay, my daughter, my son. Visit the buffet called Promoter 101.
Welcome back, friends, to the Promoter 101 podcast. This is the 244th episode. Got a great episode ahead of us. We've got a featured interview that is a true venue icon. From the State Farm Stadium in the Desert Diamond Arena, Ralph Marchetta is on here talking about working his way up from the parking lot to running the building in Phoenix. He gives a great masterclass on how to run our venue with the right touch of class, Dan.
Plus, we'll catch up with the industry news.
The Promoter 101 podcast starts right now.
They intend to live forever. So far, so good. Steiny and Luke in the morning on Promoter 101.
We've got a bunch of old Promoter 101s just waiting for you. Go back and check out all of them. Doesn't matter if you want to check out Bob Rue, Rapino, Jay Marciano. We've got them all. Promoter101.com and have your pick of them.
Feel free to hit us up with your questions and ideas at steiny@promoter101.net.
Stay in touch. Come join the conversation online on X. The show is Promoter 101. Dan is at The Jew. I'm at W. Luke Pierce. Over on the gram, the show is at Steiny Promoter 101. Dan is at Dan Presents, and I'm at W. Luke Pierce.
They thought they wanted careers. Turns out they just wanted paychecks. Steiny and Luke in the morning on Promoter 101.
Luke, let's talk about the news. What's going on out there?
News of the month, Dan. Let's start from the most current and work our way backwards here. On May 21st, we had two things happen simultaneously that I think we keep in our heads at the same time. First thing, 33 states and the District of Columbia filed their formal remedies brief asking a federal judge to break up Live Nation, force sell Ticketmaster, force sell the amps, unwind the whole vertical. Thing two, on the same day, Spotify and Live Nation announced Reserved, a new program, a multi-year deal where Spotify identifies an artist's top listeners using streaming data, holds dedicated ticketing inventory, and gives those fans priority access before the general public. Free with Spotify Premium, no extra charge. Let's say here, Dan, 33 states say break Live Nation apart. Live Nation launches a new data partnership with the world's largest streaming platform to determine who gets access to scarce concert tickets. Both happen the same day. I don't think much of this. I think it's just probably something that was planned to be announced and happened to be announced. No one's waiting around to counteract the claims of 34 attorneys general in this case. But the timing, of course, does make many people scratch their heads here. For Spotify, this is the most powerful subscriber retention tool they've ever built. I will say this having operated pre-sales based on, not necessarily based on Spotify numbers, but based on building fan clubs and communities around live events. The ticket holds such power in terms of building email lists, building up subscriber bases for paid subscription businesses, fan clubs, that sort of thing. You know, so for Spotify, specifically to see tickets to your favorite artists reserved for you because you're their biggest listener on Spotify, can't get this if you're not premium. The kind of uplift they're going to get from this, I think, could be huge. That conversion of streaming behavior into real-world access. Once fans get experience of that, I think canceling Spotify will never enter their minds. And for Live Nation, this is the kind of like algorithmic demand management with a data layer that they don't own. It's high-intent buyers getting the first crack at inventory. Theoretically, it should leave less unsold seats, less secondary market chaos, and of course, Live Nation's framing it as an anti-scalper technology. I think that's defensible. And again, I don't think this happened in response to the forced remedies request from all these attorneys general. Just interesting that it happened to me on the same day here. Next up in news, also happening this month as well, too. I just want to comment on this, Dan, because I see it all the time here in Nashville. But for the first time in quite some time, we have a 10-week number one on the Hot 100 Billboard charts. For context, I think only 4% of songs that have ever had a number one in the 67-year history of the Billboard charts held that spot for 10 weeks or more. Ella Langley just joined with Choosing Texas. It's the longest running number one in the Hot 100 by a female country artist in history ever. It's the only the seventh country song recorded solely by a woman to reach number one on the all-genre chart. Langley has pulled off a double here. She and her Be Her simultaneously held the top two spots on the top Hot 100 for the last 2 weeks. She's the first woman in country to do that in the chart's history. So how does this happen? Langley, 26, has obviously been having a moment here. She signs a pub deal in 2021, a record deal in 2023. The breakout song, You Look Like You Love Me, with Riley Green, became TikTok viral and then a number one on country airplay late 2024. But this is something bigger, Dan. This is crossover here. In Choosing Texas, she drops an album and she drops the single in October of last year. She had already had the platform from You Look Like You Love Me. She had the radio relationship. She had an album, Dandelion, that was out in April 2026 to give it a home. It didn't just happen to her overnight. It was certainly built. The lesson I think here is that making a catchy country song and hope pop finds it is not always necessarily the recipe for the country to pop crossover. And so TikTok virality, country radio credibility, streaming algorithm momentum, and then Hot 100 opens all this up. So Ella clearly having an incredible moment here, but now making chart history for something I think is going to be as ubiquitous as almost any other country music song could right off the top of your head. This is a huge song and a huge moment happening. Congrats to Ella, congrats to Sony, everybody involved in this thing. Also in recorded major label news here, Ed Sheeran announcing that he's leaving the Warner Music Group after 15 years and many successful partnerships releases there. I also found it very interesting that at the same time, Max Usada, who was the former Warner Music Group CEO, and Julie Greenwald, who was a former co-CEO of Atlantic Records, established their own 26.2 Records, which launched in partnership with Sony Music. It's no straight. Lusada and Julie Greenwald are no strangers to the Ed Sheeran business. Julie was the head of Atlantic Records while I was making his records there. She also worked with Bruno Mars, Dua Lipa, Coldplay, Meg Thee Stallion, a ton of others in her time over at Atlantic Records and Warner between them. Ed Sheeran notably going out of his way to say this isn't the end of some burned relationship with Warner Music. Very proud of the work they've done there together. Warner, for their part, going forward and say they're going to be an excellent steward of the catalog that Ed Sheeran has built during his time at Warner. But it is curious to see Sony open up a shop here with Max and Julie here with 40 plus years of accumulated capital and relationships with artists, managers, publishers, producers, A&Rs across two continents. It's a big get for Sony and curious timing on that. Ed, of course, I don't think is going to be leaving major label system anytime soon here. Plenty of other suitors to go to, but it's Sony or Universal seem like likely candidates for this. So I'll be very curious to see where he lands in his post-Warner career. That'll do it for News of the Month.
Your excuse to turn up the volume and drown out Karen from accounting. Steiny and Luke in the morning on Promoter 101.
It would not be a Promoter 101 episode without seeing what Dan has said with the hashtag Promoter 101 over on X. Got one here, Dan. It's really cool that agents, managers, and artists keep returning for more shows.
Yeah, I just feel the love and support. I'm thrilled everybody keeps bringing shows back to Emporium and keeping us in business.
How about this one, Dan? Because the New York Post and about everybody else in the world is using this term here. The Blue Dot Fever is not a new issue. There's always been soft-selling shows. Trends come and go. It's just a fan reaction to the marketplace, simply a function of supply and demand.
Just simply comes down to the laws of economic, Luke, every time.
Price is a clearinghouse, Dan. I'll teach you that in any Econ 101 book. That'll do it for Tweets of the Month. Make sure you follow Dan for more gems. He's at the Jew on X. And if you have your own Promoter 101 thoughts, be sure to use the hashtag Promoter 101.
Wake up with Steiny and Luke. And then you should probably question all your life choices. Yeah. Promoter 101.
Particularly excited about this 244th episode of Promoter 101 because our guest for the feature interview is Ralph Marchetta. He runs the State Farm Stadium in Desert Diamond Arena in Phoenix. This is a guy who literally started his way in the parking lot working his way to the top. Lucky that Dan got to sit down with him and really walk through a story of work and experience that everyone should hear. Please welcome to the podcast, Mr. Ralph Marchetta.
Venue executive extraordinaire from Phoenix, Arizona, Ralph Marchetta, finally joining us. I think now, having you on the podcast, we can say we've had all the big venues, the Lee Zeidelmans, the Lori Jacobys, the Ralph Marchetta.
Well, that is,
the trilogy of the badasses.
Dan, that is, great company to be included in, and I'm honored. So thank you. This is great. I've been looking forward to this, and I'm a big fan. For me, this is really exciting.
I want to get into your philosophy, your background, your education, and then I really want to pick your brain on the blue dot fever that we're hearing all about from the venue side of things. And I want to talk about the difference between arenas and stadiums and how you're handling that. But let's start with how you found your way to the business. Where were you educated?
So I moved out here when I was in high school. And my father, his job transferred him out to Phoenix. So the whole family picked up and moved out to Phoenix. I went to high school here, and then I went to ASU. My first summer out of high school, I started working at the Coliseum, the Veterans Memorial Coliseum. I started in the parking lot with a propane torch and a jackhammer in Phoenix in June, July, and August, working in the parking lot. Kind of worked my way indoors. I pushed a broom and drove a forklift, and I did merch. I worked security. I literally did every job there was to do. I loved music and I loved sports, and I knew I wasn't a musician or an athlete. And I'm like, hey, there's got to be a thing here. And I just kind of worked my way in. And while I was going to ASU, I just got a great opportunity to, do all of these jobs in the venue, and I was hooked.
So Vets Memorials, that's where the Phoenix Suns were playing, right?
Yeah, the Suns were playing there at the time. The Arizona State Fair is still there. But yeah, that was the home of the Suns before America West Arena.
Okay, and Arrow, what time frame basically did you start there, and what was your run?
So I started there in the summer of '83. So my first summer out of high school, I was 17. And then I made the move over to America West Arena in 1992 when that venue opened.
So when the team moved, you moved.
When the team moved, I moved, and I had graduated from ASU in '88. I was a history major, which it was easy and I enjoyed it. And when I graduated, they offered me a kind of an internship at the Coliseum, and I became an event manager, assistant event manager, and event manager, and just kind of worked my way into it.
So in the 80s, that was basically Evening Star doing the majority of the big shows in the market, right? And if Faye would come down occasionally.
Yeah. Evening Star was definitely the dominant player. Occasionally we would get Faye.
Juan Silva.
Yep. Bill Silva would do shows. Beaver would do shows occasionally. Every once in a while, Pace would come through. But yeah, it was, earlier on, it was between Evening Star, Bill Silva, and Faye were the big ones that were kind of in there. But yeah, Beaver would come through as well.
Interesting. So all big personalities.
Oh yeah. Big personalities for sure.
Developing a career working with all of these different promoters throughout the years when it was still just, even major promoters were indies essentially.
Yeah.
Because this is before the roll-ups. What did you see in the business as the change as guys like Danny, who were, even though he was a partner with Jam, he was still in it. They were all indies. It was Jerry, Arnie, and Danny's Money.
Yeah.
Versus now it's Clear Channel, it's AEG, it's Nearlander, it's whatever. It's mostly bigger corporate money at that level.
In those days, it was a much smaller enterprise, right? In terms of the promoters that we dealt with. And I think now it's become a much bigger business. There are still people that are really passionate about the music.
Suckers.
Right? But that still exists. Maybe not to the degree that it did then, at least maybe that's my perception a little bit, but it's a much more structured, bigger, kind of enterprise, right? There are a lot more guardrails than there were in the 80s in more ways than one.
Right. I mean, your top price on a Rush ticket in '83 was probably what, $35, right? It was like,
yeah.
Yeah, so the scale is just what 10x on
10x, and and the fees were $2, $1.50, something like that.
Right, but it's probably not uncommon for you to have a $10 ticket in the back of the house on an arena show.
Oh, very much so. It was just a different world.
My dad took me to see Motley Crue on Dr. Feelgood. And I was trying to remember, and I almost sent Doc McGee an email about this the other day. I was trying to remember how much the t-shirt my dad bought me cost. I was assuming it was like $35. And I have no idea. Probably, I think we're talking Dr. Feelgood was probably 89.
It was 89. Yeah, I worked merch on that, and I remember it vividly because back in those days, merch vendors, we were paid 10% cash. And
so I want you to try to remember. I bought the black t-shirt.
I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say like $15,
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it was amazing. And I was going to ASU at the time, greatest gig ever. I would work like, 3 shows a month, and I was rolling. I was laughing, a couple shows in Phoenix, drive down to Tucson, do a show down there. And, it was going to school. It was a great gig.
So you make 10% as a seller. You split that with the house.
We would make 10%. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
It was
clean up on a big arena show.
Oh, it was huge. It was great.
Yeah, it's a great deal. It's a better deal than most of the floor. That's great. That's insane. No, yeah. It's funny because I was thinking about that. It's just like, how many shirts have you bought? And I'm going through moving right now, so I'm dealing with 20 years of purging.
Yeah. Yeah.
Number of things. And I honestly don't take shirts very often at shows. Usually if I'm really into a band, I'll grab a hoodie. But it's like one in, one out at this point, because there's just like, will you wear it? Right. It's just like
boxes and boxes. You know what? My wife made me a really cool blanket of old shirts. A quilt. And it's amazing. She had it made. It's so cool. Back in those days, I could get away with like a large, or maybe a medium, so I'm never going to wear those shirts again, but it's just great to be able to like throw the quilt out and remember, those great tours of those great shows.
Yeah. I have a hard time believing, I feel like venue GMs in particular get more steps a day than concert promoters. Feel like you guys are walking the floor, that you're paying attention. You're at the shows night of. I'm sure you're not at every show, particularly the sports clients that like an average game, you trust your staff, right? But when you've got the average big tour in your room, I assume you're in the room on for almost all of them. And
oh yeah,
from load in to maybe not load out, but probably until the last patron leaves, and making sure that everything has gone smoothly before you're out the door.
Oh, absolutely. And I would, in a lot of days, I'll rack up 10 miles.
What is that, like 30,000 steps, give or take?
It's just, something like that. It's just ridiculous. And, you're definitely feeling it, walking on concrete all day long.
Yes, it'd be about 22,000 steps.
Yeah.
That's a lot of steps.
Yeah. It's pretty intense.
So if you had 3 arena shows in a week that were big arena shows, or somebody playing a triple or something, or a double, and, somebody else in the market that's blowing out, right?
Yeah.
You're getting in a good 60,000 steps that week.
You
of those 3 shows.
Yeah, you easily could. Yeah. It's a lot.
Is day 2 easier for you when you've got, say, Sabrina Carpenter rolling a second, once she's already played the first show?
Right.
The stage is built, like you guys have already proved the theory, right? Like you may tweak some stuff, but like besides resupplying.
Yeah. Oh,
it's kind of a slow day in the afternoon on the second day, right? Because you don't have to deal with load. You have to deal with load out, but you had an earlier day because you didn't have to load them out.
It's a great day. Second day is always a great day. Or even if we get a pre-rig day, and or if we're doing a rehearsal scenario, yeah, when you're already set up, going into the show day, infinitely easier, no doubt about it.
Do you like being the rehearsal day for a tour? Does that give you a chance to bond with the group and like put an imprint on them? And they may not remember the 17th day of the tour. They probably remember the first and the second. They probably remember the last, right? But they can't wait to get out of there in the last. The first one, they're excited. If they can't wait to get away from their wives and their kids, they're excited to be back on the road.
Yeah, I love it. And again, Phoenix and geography, we're close to LA, and we end up doing a decent number of rehearsals. And so I love it. I really do. And to your point, getting the opportunity to bond with the touring team and spend time with them and, again, leave an imprint. Yeah, it's great. I love every opportunity to do that we can.
Do you guys co-promote when shows come into your rooms, or do you normally rent?
No, we typically rent. I would say back in the day we would co-pro occasionally, but basically now we just rent.
So when Live Nation comes in or AEG comes in, you just give them the aggressive deal?
Yeah, you make an aggressive deal and you look at who's bringing you volume and you try to incentivize them and create a model that's going to encourage them to bring you more business and try to create a great experience. And that's really what we focus on.
Let's talk about, so you went from school to the theater, you jumped from one arena to the other with the basketball team.
Yeah.
You're the Susan Lucci of venue executives. You've been nominated for venue executives more time than Polestar has done the award.
Yeah, it's really, I am the Susan Lucci of that award.
And I have the right to tease you because I've been nominated almost as many times and never won, right? So it's just like I follow in your footsteps, sir. But to be in that company that you're in constantly shows that the industry has such respect for you because you're constantly in the running and always nominated. So clearly the industry has nothing but love for the job you're doing. And that's got to feel great, regardless of winning or not, just the fact that you're constantly nominated.
No, it does. And I've always approached it, and it goes back to when I first kind of got into it and just valuing relationships and trying to do the best job and take care of people and treat people the way you want to be treated. And and it's been great. And the friendships and stories and you know better than anyone. I mean, it's incredible. It really is.
The industry seems to have a genuine affection for you. And obviously you dedicating your entire career to live entertainment performances, not just whether it's the sports or the family shows or rock and roll, but keeping the venue program and bringing entertainment to Arizona is your job.
It is. And I tell people this all the time. And I taught a venue management class at ASU for a few years. I would always tell the students, when those house lights go out and you hear the roar of the crowd, I still feel that rush, that excitement, feeling that I played some small part in like making that happen is still really rewarding. And still, I still get that excitement and that rush. I really do.
I love that. I think there's something I miss by not working in the venue executive part of the world. Every once in a while, I'll be at a conference, right? And on my flight from Seattle, I'll have Eric Bressler and I'll have Tim Higgins and maybe Matt Myers will be connecting through from Spokane to where we're going. Right? So Tammy Bryant, like there'll be like 9 or 10 of us, right, on the flight, but it's me and all the venue executives from the Pacific Northwest. And, we'll wind up shuttling to the hotel from the airport together. And somebody will talk about the ice system went down and they had to build this ice shed in the parking lot so they could keep the ice going because the show has to play, right? Like the team would have to forfeit the game if you don't figure it out, right? Yeah. So you figure out how to make the ice rink work without the coolers under the system. And it's like, I would have no fucking clue how to make ice, let alone how to go from having basketball on Friday and Sunday have ice. So there's a hockey game at noon and then somehow Wednesday be set up for dirt on the floor because you've got monster trucks rolling in. And you hear people that hate the idea of moving or painting and the idea that you guys build a house on Friday and on Sunday have a completely different house in there, going from ice to dirt to hardwood.
Yeah.
Back again. And then the precision that you guys do that and the timetables that you're under are amazing. The pressure and the things you guys are able to pull off and the regulations involved with those things, because the fire department is certainly on top of everything you're doing.
No doubt.
The police department have everything to do with your traffic flow. Everything, it's at such a level, you're not sneaking anything by anyone, right? Everything is to code and they're always there, right? You're not getting by with anything, right? You're under it. and you're on a time level and in a budget, and you guys are always having to deliver.
That is really part of why I love it and enjoy it, because it is that variety, going from Disney on Ice to Florence and the Machine. And, it's that variety and that change and that just you're on to the next one, right? On to the next event, on to the next show. That part of it keeps it interesting, keeps you excited about it, keeps you engaged.
And it does always seem like there's an additional challenge. Like, it could be 2 shows in a day, but that's because they're not selling 100% of the house. So you don't really have to worry about parking. But on the other end, now you've got shows that are doing doubles. Some of the comics can roll through a double, and they are selling the house for both. And you're having to deal with parking for an arena that only has parking for setup for 15,000 people, and yet you have to roll the house. Like, that's got to be an insane challenge, especially now you've got to get the phones in the bags and back out of them and on the changeover. It's like, that's an incredible, like, treating your theater or your arena like it's a theater. Like, it's insane.
It is. It's amazing. And people that get into the venue side of this, you've got to be passionate about it. You got to love it, because it's not Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, right? And it's not, you're off weekends and holidays. And yeah, I have a confession. I mean, back in my NBA days, we would have 41 home games, right, during the NBA season. And you would have, the shows and particularly the concert side of it and the other events. The team side of it, to me, the music side of it always appealed to me. I always enjoyed that part of it much more. And, by game 32, it becomes super repetitive. And even though, you're always going to have things that come up at a football game or a basketball game or a hockey game. But, by and large, it's pretty much the same setup, kind of the same drill. There's that kind of rhythm to it. And when you're dealing with the music side, it's, different genres, different fans, different touring crew, different promoter. There's so much of it that's different, and that keeps it fresh, and that keeps it exciting for me.
Okay, so there's a bunch I want to unpack there, particularly because we don't talk about the sports stuff on the podcast very much, and I think a lot of people are fascinated about it. So when you're doing an NBA game, always TV, which has got to, once you got it dialed, because your arenas at that level are all wired for it, because it's all televised, right? But you're loading in, whether it's hockey or baseball or football or NBA or even pro wrestling, TV is a thing. And that changes the union card. It changes what's going on. It changes how everything works. It changes how the audience is interacted with, opposed to it being worked for the audience themselves, right? So everything changes at that point. But you knowing how to deal with the needs of when the ABC affiliate or the NBC affiliate or Fox shows up and drops in on you, on top of already having the NFL or NBA rider that you have to deal with. Now you're dealing with the additional rider of what the network needs, because that's where the real money's coming from to produce the event, not at the gate on those things.
That's right.
TV money, and one's not more important than the other. You got to take care of both clients simultaneously, because the event doesn't work without both of them. But that's Dex level shit, just like you have to have the ice. You have to figure it out.
Well, and I'll tell you where it gets really crazy is once you get into the playoff scenario. That's because, TV becomes a much bigger part of it. And as teams advance in the playoffs, that footprint gets bigger and bigger. And, they create the kind of in-arena areas. And it just becomes much more challenging as a team progresses in the playoffs. That TV part of it does get bigger and bigger, and more trucks, and it's just a much bigger deal.
Now, because of your teams and you're holding playoff dates, I imagine you've gotten really good at knowing the likelihood of if your team's going to make the playoffs this year, or if they're not this year or any year, not but knowing when, okay, we're probably most likely we're not going to make it, reaching out to the league at this point saying, can I get this date back? I might be able to get AC/DC or Eric Church. As the odds aren't great, can I have that one back? Can you work around it? And I know as it becomes less and less likely that they're going to need the team.
Yeah.
The team's going to be in the playoffs. They're more likely to give you back the dates that you need so you can find that revenue, right? So knowing how and when statistically, the likelihood starts to get towards you're probably done for the season, or we won't be hosting anything that late in the year.
Yeah, and on the NFL side, it's fewer games, so it's a little bit easier, right? And back in my NBA days, it could be a little more difficult. I certainly had some near misses, where we committed to a date and a late season push by the team, and it's like, oh, we could have a problem here, and that can be really stressful.
I bet that's gotta suck. When you were talking about back in your NBA days, I immediately thought of Fletch. And I just envisioning you with a fro, and I just think that'd be awesome.
I'm 6'8" with the fro.
With the fro, I had a feeling you'd know the quote. My partner Jason Zink's favorite quote of all movies.
Love that.
All right, so talking about the NBA, you're dealing with basketball, you're dealing with wrestling. When you're a venue that serves the market, and you're getting a phone call from AEW and WWE, and they both want to play the market, is it your job to protect the event that's already confirmed when the second call comes in? Are you serving the market by bringing the extra event in, or are you just making both clients aware that they're on top of each other?
Full disclosure. Yeah.
I guess it'd be the same thing if Eric Church was trying to play the same week as Parker McCollum, right? Like it's going to hurt both shows, right?
Yeah, it used to be, back in the day, right? And country music was very much this way, where they kind of wanted certain protection windows and things like that. You really don't see that anymore, just because there's so much volume and there's, it's just impossible. But yeah, I always approach it from, full disclosure, and hey, this is what we have going on. This is, who's in the building, and just make everybody aware of it.
Is there ever a moment when you're in the room and Bull Riders Only is there, or monster trucks, and you just see all of that dirt in your arena, and you're just like, I have to clean all of this shit? And I have Barbara Streisand and her beautiful crowd, or Neil Diamond, or very upscale adult crowd in the room 3 days later, and you're just looking at just this mountain of dirt that you allowed them to bring into your...
Yeah, I do. And because it, and that's
That's gonna be soul crushing, right? It's just like,
it can be. Yeah, it can be.
because if you have the Rolling Stones in the room, they're taking everything with them. The stage will be gone. They're gonna get out of there. Like, that's on them. But when bull riders pull their trucks away, they're leaving the dirt.
Yeah, well, and both, at the stadium, obviously with Supercross and Monster Jam and all that, and then at the arena at Desert Diamond, we do PBR. And, the fan doesn't see it or think about it or anything else, but I do. And I'm like, oh man, this dirt's going to be with us for months.
Sand at the beach, right? It's just like, you don't live forever.
Yeah. You no matter how many, people you have wiping down seats, and, you're changing filters, and you got, leaf blowers up on the steel to blow the dust off, and it's everywhere.
It's the things that the fans don't think about because it's not their job, right? Where did the wrestling ring come from? You have to, you're the local guy. I know that the wrestling brings the ring now, but you've got to have a dirt guy, right? Like, when they call you, you've got a guy. You got to figure out where to get 20 tons of dirt, whatever the fuck it is. It's got to be ridiculous, but I bet you have a dirt guy. You know exactly who your dirt guy is. When the Stones are coming in, they got to cover the field. You know who to call for the field cover. Who in the world would you call to find field cover? I know the production guys know who's got the field, but somebody is storing 1 million feet of cover somewhere, and it's only worth something in the summer. And when they need it, everyone needs it at the same time, because Louis got 3 stadium shows the same fucking night.
That's right. Well, and I'm super lucky at State Farm Stadium. The field rolls out, so that's
handy.
That is the best.
When you do a dance show, where the marble floor comes from, when you do wrestling, where the ring comes from, when you do basketball, where the wooden floor comes from, and then where the hell it goes when you're not using it, and which is a whole nother nightmare of where you're storing it, because it's got to go back 3 days later and be back on the floor.
Where are we going to put all this stuff? Never enough.
Where's the parquet going? It's amazing. And then you've got the NBA one day, and then you've got the NCAA doing their championship thing, and they got a completely different floor. So you got to pull the floor up just to put a different floor down. It's exactly the same.
Talk about unsung heroes, but the guys that do the changeovers, in our venues, they are incredible.
The coolest venues ever, things when they show the ellipse timeline when they go from one event to the other. It's so cool.
Those guys are amazing. And think about it, right? Those more often than not, that's overnight. We got load in at 7 a.m. the next morning, and they're coming out of hockey or basketball or whatever it is, and it's incredible. They do an amazing job.
Desert Diamond Arena, State Farm Stadium. You're holding 2 gigs essentially in the Arizona market.
Yeah, I've been here for a long time and, spent a lot of time downtown, and then 2 years ago kind of made the move. And I always loved the booking side of it, right? And I never completely gave that part of whatever jobs I've had up. And this opportunity came along, and to get back into the booking world in a different way. And I'd never done a stadium before, so to be able to be involved in a stadium and an arena, it was amazing. It was too good to pass up.
Now, I think fans don't necessarily understand the difference between a stadium show and an arena show. Obviously, production scaled much bigger.
Yeah.
You're rolling in a stage that normally you'd either have in-house or they're touring with in an arena, but there's fly points, the grid, all kind of exists. In a stadium, much bigger scale, depending on if you're an NFL's football type stadium or college stadium for football, or a baseball stadium, may completely have a different setup as far as production. But the setups, the tear down, how long it takes to get a show in and then out, and what else you can book and how that affects everything, a little different, because usually an arena, almost always, unless there's a pre-hang day, you can go event by event, day by day. A show will take all day to produce, but you can do a show day before and day after. Not usually the case in stadium unless they're able to share steel.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point. And certainly in arena world, many, many times it would be, a show, and the next night a game, and then another show, and then WWE, and then another, so that rhythm, that pace was much faster. And then moving into stadium world, it's just the scale, to your point, right? The scale is just completely different, and the numbers are so much bigger. It has its nuance, right? Every venue, size, I was involved with Arizona Financial Theater, which at the time was Dodge Theater back in the day. And that's different, right? That world is a little bit different than the arena world. So I've been really fortunate in that I've been able to see different size venues kind of throughout my career.
You're dealing with the NFL. Obviously, State Farm Stadium is the home of the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
For people not familiar, they used to be the St. Louis Cardinals.
Back in the day, yeah. They've been out here for a while now. They moved out here, gosh, probably 90, 89, 90, somewhere in there. The Cardinals were the Chicago Cardinals at one point.
Really?
They were. Yeah, they actually.
So these guys just can't stay anywhere.
Yeah, they were the Chicago Cardinals at one point. So going way back.
The Cardinals?
Cardinals, I'm like that.
They're the Cardinals. Interesting. Okay, well, that I didn't know, but fascinating. A different world. It's one of those things, and it's got to be a really interesting thing, like the guy that works for Pepsi or Coke, the day that you find out after 20 years that Burger King is switching servers over to the opposite competitor, right? It's just like, can you imagine being the sales guy that had that account and lost it? Like, to be able to be at the stadium and find out all of a sudden that your team got scooped, right? Like,
yeah,
losing the Sonics to OKC, right? Like those deals that happen where it's like everything, the business is completely built around one thing, and suddenly,
yeah, and having kind of seen that, the Coyotes had relocated before I moved over, to Desert Diamond, but that's kind of another example of that, right? Where the team leaves, and then as a venue, it's like, okay, how do we reinvent ourselves? What are we?
As a venue GM, and we're way past the 101 level here on this conversation, but it's not really something a venue GM can do to save a team. Like, those are tax incentives, and those things are voted in by governments and done by mayors and governors and town councils, right? I mean, that's at a money level. You don't have the approval power, and I can't imagine there's a GM in the country that can cut the kind of deal to keep a sports franchise in a market if they're being courted by a government of another market.
Yeah, 100%. And, there are all sorts of reasons that owners look at relocation and look at other markets and things like that. But yeah, it's a municipality, it's a state. You look at the Chicago Bears, right? And Indiana is courting them, and municipalities, state governments, those are the players when it comes to that. On the venue side of it, you're just inevitably trying to deal with either the fallout or how you can, whatever kind of smaller things you can do to kind of make a scenario where the team wants to stay. But it's a tough thing.
All right. I want to talk about, since we're already at this 500 level class, the buzzword of the moment, everybody's talking about blue dot fever. Have you seen this hit your seating mats this summer?
Yes.
Are you in fear as a venue GM that we're going to see shows cancel out from under you that you were counting on playing this year, that you think that this is a normal thing, that the average, the same number of shows every year are going to cancel just because there are bad shows? Or is this a particularly heavy year where the economy is being affected or tickets have outpriced the fans and we're going to see more cancellations? Just talking from your personal market, from your two venues, in your experience, how do you feel this is affecting your market? Is this a greater issue, or is it just something that's caught social media attention lately because people have figured out how to take screenshots of cell maps?
Yeah, I think every year there are going to be those tours, those shows that underperform. I think this year maybe it's a little bit different given kind of the geopolitical economic uncertainty. And I think that maybe feeds into it a little bit. There's a lot out there, right? There's just a ton of volume. And so there's a certain bit of kind of market inevitability that there are going to be shows that don't do as well. So I think it's a little bit overblown, but I think it is real, right? I think it's certainly valid in terms of the economy and what people are feeling and that uncertainty. And, a ticket these days is a little bit of not a little bit, it's a bigger investment. And so people are making decisions and, gosh, how am I going to feel in 6 months? What's the economy going to look? What's my personal economy going to look like? So I think that all goes into it.
All real thing. Do you think you're going to wind up seeing a couple cancellations this year because of that effect in the market? I'm not going to ask you names.
As of right now, in my situation, I don't.
So that's good news. So it's not an epidemic.
I wouldn't necessarily call it an epidemic. It's a reality, but it's not an epidemic. I think epidemic is more of a panic, right? And I don't think it's necessarily at that point. But there are going to be winners and losers, just like everything else.
Well, there's a bell curve, right? Half of them are always above, half of them are always below. This is not new news. We know this.
100%. No doubt about it.
All right. So you're the 13th biggest DMA in the country, Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah.
One of the strongest Bs or one of the softest As, but you are a heavy hitting market. Almost nothing skips you.
Yeah.
And financially, you have a very wealthy side of your market. Scottsdale has the Beverly Hills of the market, if you will. And then you have the other side where you got a lot of first generation Americans and a lot of immigrants that stuck in possibly. And you're dealing with a very rich side, a very poor side. You've got the middle. So you've got this amazing spread where you can sell a ticket for $5,000 in the first row, most likely on Platinum. And at the back of the house, you're probably struggling to sell $25 tickets to people that can barely afford it.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
And I know most people would say they have that problem everywhere, but I think just because of the haves and the have-nots in your market, I think it's more extreme there.
I would agree with that 100%. And I think, and it's amazing. I've been here since high school and I've seen incredible growth. I mean, just almost mind-boggling growth over the last 30 plus years. And, we do have all of those things, right? It used to be that in this market in the summer, things kind of shut down and, people went to San Diego and, it was too hot.
Temperature in August?
Yeah. It's 120 and, but that's no longer the case. And we've grown to such a size that we are very much a year-round market. We're not dependent on, kind of tourist season, although that's a huge part of the economy. But there are other things here now that have attracted that growth and stimulated that growth. When you talk about kind of the demographics, you're spot on. I see a lot of regional Mexican artists that come through. And for a long time, even our Latin market was very much regional Mexican, but we're seeing some diversification in that, where, we're seeing artists, Latin artists, Puerto Rican artists, or Colombian artists that are doing the business as well. To your point, there is a lot of money in terms of, Scottsdale and some of the other communities kind of surrounding Phoenix. And it's just a very dynamic market, and it's become really, really competitive.
It's an interesting market because of the size. You also bookmarked on both sides. To the north, you have Flagstaff, which is one of the smaller Ds in the country.
Yeah.
You've got Tucson, which comes in at market 62, I believe. So one of the biggest college markets in the country.
Yeah.
Very large creek system, very active college, but yet is a smaller city than yours, but far enough away that acts could play both, particularly in the theaters, harder in the arena. Usually different legs in the arena. Definitely not seeing much stadium business in Tucson.
No. And in the 80s, back when I was going to ASU and I would go down and do shows in Tucson, and, there used to be a lot more arena shows in Tucson, but that's really kind of no longer the case, right? And as the business has become more global, there are just a lot more options out there. And Phoenix is a major, a bigger market. We tend to get a lot of those. And because of the geography, right? It's either in or out of LA, coming from Texas into California or the other way, and proximity to Vegas too. Although that hurts us, I think, in certain scenarios.
It's an interesting thing when you are the entire game for your state, and it's a big state.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is an interesting thing. And we certainly get people, that will make the trip down from Flagstaff or come up from Tucson, or other smaller communities in the state that will, come to Phoenix for the big show and make a weekend out of it and all of that. We pull from almost the entire state, I would say.
Now, you're in a market with a lot of promoters. Phoenix has always had a lot of players there.
Yeah.
You've got 3 different performing arts centers that cover the Phoenix market.
Yeah.
That all self-promote. You've got Danny Zalesko, who obviously was Evening Star and with Jam and sold the Clear Channel and then went back on his own. You've got Live Nation. AG doesn't seem to have an office down there, but obviously they do touring stuff there. I assume Wojers and those guys come down from San Diego from time to time.
Yeah.
Or is that Donnie's office in Brent's that comes down and services from Denver?
So we'll get a lot of the, touring stuff with the, Adam and Rich. And so a lot of that will come through on the AEG side. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's always been competitive in terms of promoters, Tom LaPena, he and Danny worked together a long time ago, and Tom went his separate way. And, Danny is still doing, a lot of theater stuff.
Bunch of indies, right? It's just the Stephen Chiltons that are probably not playing at the arena level yet, but he'll get there. And you've got a handful in between, and there's some, older promoters that do some of the random like casino type stuff, like there, you have a lot of players in your market. At any given point, it wouldn't surprise me who could put in an offer for $200,000 for a show in your market.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, you're correct. And mentioning the casinos, that's become an interesting dynamic over the last 20 years as well. So, all of that kind of goes into it. They're out there buying. They do a decent number of shows, particularly Talking Stick. Some of the other casinos kind of surrounding the market, right? They're looking at building kind of bigger venues, and so it's super competitive, super dynamic, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and the venue sizes are all over. You can find something, and then there's all those stadiums that the baseball teams have, and I know they can be utilized as well. So the number of venues that exist are amazing. No one has ever said I couldn't play Phoenix. I couldn't find it.
Yeah, and there's new venues being talked about, and some that are even that have broken ground, and so it's really interesting to kind of see. And for a lot of years, it was just the Coliseum, right? I mean, back in my day, the Coliseum and Sun Devil Stadium, many, many years ago. And that was really kind of it until the Amp opened up about 30 plus years ago.
And you got to assume that somebody's going to open up a Mission Ballroom Pinnacle type venue in the market at some point, because you guys are ripe for one of those. So I don't know anything, but just the way it's happening nationally, it seems like you've got to be on either AEG or Live Nation or both of their bucket lists for when's the 5,500 seater coming to Arizona.
It's certainly the missing link. I think that 5,500 seat venue is going to make a lot of sense at some point.
Yeah, it seems like that's all the craze ever since Seth opened up in DC and Donnie opened up in Denver.
Yeah.
Roadrunner opened up in Boston, and the MGM opened in Boston. It seems like it's the new flavor of the day.
It definitely is. And you're seeing the investment being made. And yeah, so, I'm sure they're all looking at it in this market, and, it'll happen. Certainly it'll happen at some point because, the growth here just hasn't slowed. I mean, it just continues.
What's the future of the business in your eyes?
Wow. It's interesting on the venue side, particularly in this market. There's more and more competition. I think it is, you're seeing that competition take various forms, right? Competition in terms of the fan experience, competition in terms of the artist and touring crew experience. It's been amazing to see over the last 20, 30 years how that has just elevated. And I think it's going to continue to do so. And, live events, we're in competition with a lot of other things, right? People can stay home and stream. People can, there are so many options when it comes to discretionary income. So we're trying to create a better and better experience. And it's been really interesting to see how that develops. And you look at backstage and what new venues are doing and what older venues are doing in terms of like updating and changing. It's been it's been really incredible to see how it's evolving.
I got to say, venue managers have always been there for each other in a way that I don't think promoters ever have. You guys teach each other. You have your association.
IAVM. Yep.
Changed, right? It used to be AA and
IAAM, yeah.
Right. But you guys do your regionals and your areas, and then the international and the big thing that they do every year. But they do the schools and they teach, and you go to here goes to Australia, and like you feel David Kells like coming through some of these younger guys, right? It's you guys are like there to help the next generation. And it feels like if somebody bumps into that problem of how do you deal with this? I don't know what to do, but I got to get the doors open in 2 days. You guys are there for each other and very supportive of each other. It doesn't seem nearly as cutthroat as the other sides of the business.
No, and we, Dan, that's a great point. And we all talk, we do all help each other, even in the same market, right? And it may be competitive between venues in the market, but we still talk, we still help each other. And IAVM has been a great kind of institution over the years in terms of professionalizing venue management and the different programs of venue management school and all of these things, and really investing in the next generation of venue managers. And it's I've always found it to be really good in that way, where if I have an issue or we've got a show coming up, that just played Chicago, I can call Jerry Goldman and say, hey, Jerry, what happened, or how did this work? Or, that part of it has been great. And people have always been willing to share information and to help.
Jerry Goldman, the gold standard.
The gold standard, the Windy City.
I followed his career from Tulsa to the stadium in Minneapolis and Chicago at the United Center, of all the people you could have picked. Super good guy. Love that dude.
He is a super good guy.
It's awesome. Yeah, it does seem like you guys have a brotherhood, and I think maybe the rest of the industry could take a lead, because certainly agencies don't seem to be there to support the other agencies outside, and for the most part, and
Yeah, it's a different
kind of at each other's heads, and promoters are fighting for it, and radio stations are constantly at each other's heads. So you guys probably are the example for the industry. But Scott Peng once told me, come to the conference, come meet these guys. I'm like, all the venue guys? He's like, the venue guys are the most fun. Like, come hang out with just the venue guys, without the other promoters and without the other agents. Come hang out. You'll love them.
Pang was the most fun.
I love Scott. It's like me, Scott, Jay Williams,
Yeah.
Zink, Brian Hill got reined in like what was like hurricane winds in Fort Myers, Florida for IVM 15 years ago or something. And Scott was holding court talking about Globetrotter stuff back in its days with Globetrotters and Ice Capades. And me and me and Jay Williams were eating it up. Like, we watched those guys on Scooby-Doo. That's the cool.
Oh, so good.
Both those guys would have the best time with all the venue guys. He's right. They're always a good time. You never leave a venue conference with any drama. You always leave with a good time. Those guys are great hang. All of them. And you meet the people that just simply want your shows.
Yeah. Oh,
Bring
yeah.
entertainment to our market. We need more shows.
Content.
Never hurts. There was a girl that overnighted me and Jason brownies.
Wow.
Things from the Spokane Regional. Me and Kim Badir and Tammy Bryant talked me and Jason and Rick Farrell to go to the regional in Spokane.
Nice.
We had the best time. And
That's awesome.
the girl overnighted us Little Debbie brownies and said, please bring us shows to Abertford.
I love that.
It was awesome. It's like the brownies cost less than the FedEx, especially because of the international FedEx. When it left in 15 years later, still talking about it.
You remembered.
Yep. Parker McCollum did play there this year.
There you go. See, it paid off.
Yeah, it took her a minute, but paid off.
She's playing the long game. It's all right.
It's definitely a long game. Business seems to be evolving, but regardless, the Phoenix market, you seem to be in the center of all of it, as you have been since college in the 80s. Whether you're in the parking lot with a jackhammer or selling merch or running the venue.
It's much better not being in the parking lot. I will tell you that.
Seems like you're still getting your steps in.
No doubt.
Ralph, thank you so very much for making time and joining us here on Promoter 101.
Dan, thank you. Really enjoyed it. This has been a pleasure. Thank you.
Now, their opinions may have changed, but not the fact that they're always right. Huh? Steiny and Luke in the morning on Promoter 101.
Quote of the month. If you can't be better than your competition, just dress better. This quote comes to us from Anna Winter. Fitting, as Devil Wear Prada 2 is killing at the box office right now.
I love it, Dan. Love a good Devil Wears Prada reference on this podcast. I think we need to make more of them.
You know, it's really about how you dress, Luke. It's not how you feel, it's how you look.
Well, let's continue this podcast at a glacial pace, Dan.
You may not feel incredible, but as long as you look incredible. Fake it till you make it, Luke. Fake it till you make it.
It's pretty obvious they never really grew up. They only learned how to act in public. Steiny and Luke in the morning on Promoter 101.
Thank you to all the listeners for tuning in for this, the 244th episode of Promoter 101. We've got a whole back catalog y'all need to go check out. In the meantime, if you like what you heard today, have a question for us, question for Ralph, send us a note, drop us a line. It's steiny@promoter101.net.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We will be back, as always, the last Thursday of every month moving forward.
Our June episode will feature the one and only Peter Shapiro. The Brooklyn Bulls founder, a.k.a. Shappy, will return for what is sure to be a great hang.
Shappy.
Shappy in the house. Looking forward to that. We've interviewed him before, Luke. Something tells me this will be no short of a good time.
Looking forward to it. But between now and then, Dan, Connor, and I are wishing you sold out shows for the month to come.
Cheers! Call your mother.
Visit the buffet called Promoter 101.